The sun had just dipped below the horizon when the screech of worn-out brakes echoed in front of a lavish suburban mansion. David, a delivery driver in a faded jacket, staggered up the steps with a heavy box in his arms. But instead of gratitude, the door swung open to a shrill voice. "You're late! People like you only deliver boxes. You don't deserve respect." The package was shoved aside, crashing onto the marble steps, scattering items across the ground. From inside, a teenage boy burst out laughing, while his elegant mother slammed the door shut with icy disdain. David stood frozen, his eyes shadowed with pain, his roughened hands trembling as he quietly gathered the fallen pieces. He had no way of knowing that just a few days later, the very same family who humiliated him would be screaming for help in the middle of a raging inferno, and their fate would rest in the hands of the delivery man they had dismissed as nothing. In a quiet American suburb, rows of immaculate houses lined the streets, their lawns trimmed to perfection, expensive cars gleaming in the driveways. Among them stood the Robert family's mansion, with its spotless white fence and crystal windows sparkling like a badge of prosperity. Robert, a driven businessman, was rarely home, buried in endless meetings and deals. His wife, Linda, had grown used to luxury. Over the years, her manners hardened into arrogance, measuring people by wealth and social rank. Their teenage son, Ethan, attended an elite private school, and under his mother's influence, began imitating her disdainful gaze. Just a few blocks away lived David, a delivery driver in his 30s, sharing a cramped rental apartment with his ailing mother. His old car rattled with every start, his cheap phone buzzing nonstop with new orders. Yet David never complained. He knew every dollar mattered for rent, medicine, and survival. By day, he carried packages through rain or sun. By night, he worked extra shifts to keep food on the table. Neighbors respected him for his humility and tireless work ethic, but in the eyes of those who looked down from gilded heights, he was invisible, a shadow moving at the margins of their polished world. That gulf between privilege and struggle, arrogance and dignity, was already widening, waiting for the spark that would turn quiet disdain into life-changing collision. David, the 30-something delivery driver, seemed ordinary at first glance, slim build, calloused hands, and worn clothes. But behind his steady brown eyes lay patience and quiet pride. He spoke little, always offering a polite nod when dropping off packages, never raising his voice even under harsh words. His strength came from devotion to his sick mother, who relied on him for rent and medication. Years ago, he had volunteered with a fire safety team, and though those days had passed, the lessons lingered deep inside him. In stark contrast stood Linda, Robert's wife, who carried herself with the hauteur of privilege. She believed money and status defined human worth, her gaze upon working people always laced with scorn. Robert, her husband, was practical, not cruel, but too consumed by business to notice how his family treated others. Silence had become his default. Their teenage son, Ethan, molded by that household, parroted the same sneers, finding amusement in belittling others without grasping the value of work. Between them and David stretched an unseen divide, arrogance clashing with humility, prejudice against dignity. It was a gulf that seemed unbridgeable, until fate intervened, forcing them to see each other through a lens stripped of wealth and pretense. One sunny afternoon, David pulled his sputtering car to a halt in front of the Robert family's mansion. Exhausted after a long day, he carried a heavy package up the steps, still managing a faint smile. Before he could knock, the door swung open, heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. Linda appeared, her face tight with irritation, eyes cold as steel. "You're 10 minutes late. Unbelievable," she snapped. David lowered his head, explaining softly that traffic on the freeway had delayed him, but his words were cut short by her dismissive wave. From behind her, Ethan smirked. "Mom, guys like him are never on time. They just want tips." In one swift motion, Linda shoved the box from David's arms. It crashed onto the tiled steps, scattering contents across the porch. Ethan burst into mocking laughter as Linda slammed the door shut as if banishing a beggar. David froze, then slowly bent down to gather each item, his rough hands trembling slightly. He said nothing, but the quiet tightening of his jaw revealed the sting of humiliation. In that moment, injustice hung in the air like a blade pressed against his pride. That night, as David's old car rumbled to life, he cast one last glance at the mansion, glowing with crystal chandeliers and laughter that spilled out into the night. He bit down hard, thinking of his frail mother waiting for medicine, then tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Silence was his armor. Not cowardice, but the only shield left to protect his dignity from disdain. Inside the mansion, Linda lounged on the sofa, satisfied she had taught a lesson to a late delivery man. Ethan mimicked David's bowed posture, laughing cruelly, while Robert sighed and turned away, too weary to intervene. The divide had never felt sharper. Arrogance fed by comfort on one side, endurance forged by hardship on the other. Every glance, every word, every slammed door built that invisible wall higher, and beneath the quiet surface, a storm gathered, unseen, inevitable, waiting for the moment it would tear down illusions of power and status and force truth into the open. 3 nights after that bitter encounter, the calm suburb was shattered by a sharp electrical blast. Inside the Roberts' glittering mansion, faulty wires sparked, igniting the velvet curtains. Within minutes, flames roared up the walls, swallowing the polished wood and gilded frames. Linda jolted awake, coughing violently as thick smoke poured into her bedroom. Ethan's screams pierced the chaos, calling for his father. But Robert was trapped downstairs, stumbling blindly through the choking haze. The house had become a blazing cage, alarms shrieking above the desperate cries for help. In those moments, pride and wealth meant nothing, just fragile, terrified people clawing for air. And outside the gate, fate intervened. David, finishing a late shift, spotted the inferno. Without hesitation, he slammed his brakes, leapt from his car, and sprinted toward the flames. His voice cut through the night. "Is anyone inside?" His eyes locked on the glowing windows where, only days ago, the very people who had humiliated him now screamed for their lives. The smoke was suffocating, yet David didn't falter. Memories of his volunteer days with a fire safety team surged back, guiding his instincts. He charged through the yard, shoulder slamming against the blistering door until it gave way. Inside, Robert lay collapsed by the stairs, his face flushed from the fumes. Without pause, David seized them both, leading them toward the narrow escape route he had forced open. Behind them, the house erupted in a fiery blast, devouring its luxurious interior. But on the lawn, under the night sky, the Roberts collapsed onto the grass, coughing but alive. In the flickering light, Linda S.'s wide eyes locked on her rescuer, realizing with a shudder that the man who saved them was the very delivery driver she had scorned only days before. On the lawn, beneath the glow of a mansion now reduced to charred beams, the Roberts collapsed in trembling relief. Linda clutched Ethan, her face streaked with tears and soot, whispering over and over, "Dear God, we're alive." Robert, usually composed, sank to his knees, gasping for breath. His hand reached for David's arm, gripping it with a reverence he had never shown before. Looking into the delivery man's weary eyes, his voice cracked but steady. "You saved my family. I owe you more than life itself." Ethan, the once proud teenager, clung to David's side, stammering out a tearful thank you. And Linda, the woman who had slammed the door in contempt, now knelt before him, clutching his hands, shoulders shaking. "I was wrong. If not for you, we'd all be gone." In that moment, silence settled over the scene, heavy not with arrogance, but with awakening. Pride dissolved, and raw humanity took its place. As dawn broke over the wreckage of the night, smoke still curled from the blackened frame of the Roberts home. David walked away quietly, his thin shoulders bathed in the orange glow of morning light. He sought no praise, no reward, only the peace of knowing he had followed the call of his own heart. This story reminds us all: never judge someone by their job or appearance, for hidden beneath a worn jacket may beat the heart of a silent hero. Respect everyone, even in the smallest ways, because you never know whose hand might pull you back from the edge tomorrow. Life is fragile, unpredictable, but compassion and respect are enduring flames, lights that pierce the darkness of prejudice and pride, guiding us toward the dignity and kindness that make us truly human.